And welcome back to Mixed Media. We're here for another awesome Tuesday of your favorite show, your favorite podcast that you've ever seen ever, obviously, because we talk about the most wonderful of things, which is anything art-related in our particular fields, in particular, which would be film, media, music, gaming, and anything that you could possibly relate to any of those things. So if you have any interest in those things, and you should, that you'll have some interest in this podcast. There's all kinds of people who enjoy our podcasts. People really loved our clandestine series, which I am definitely bringing back. I don't know if Ben's going to bring it back, but I'm definitely going to bring back some goodness talking about the three-letter agencies and how they affect the art world. That's definitely coming back. But people also like our legal breakdowns, our reviews, all kinds of stuff that we do on this podcast, philosophy. And so, check out our huge catalog of episodes down in the description. We're going through a change right now. I'm actually in the moment figuring out our new live whiteboard. I was kind of tinkering with it today. This is the same old one, but we're trying to update that. So this is a surface you can draw on live if you're tuning in, you want to participate that way. It's a very unique show, is what I'm trying to get at. And it's one that you should take a look at, and subscribe if you have any interest in the stuff that we talk about. And like this video if you actually like this content. It's a good feedback tool, and we'd like to have more data points to work with. And honestly, feel free to hit the dislike button. Not as happy, but but I would like to know if you leave a comment why you disliked it. So before we begin, we should introduce ourselves. So, my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
My name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
Sweet. And also, just to say, you can absolutely chat anywhere where we're streaming right now, whether it's YouTube, Rumble, or Twitch. Please, shoot us a comment. I'll see it. We have an all-stream chat that's connected to our Discord. If you're listening on Discord, which is awesome, you can also chat on Discord as well in the stream chat, and it all gets nicely collated. And I've got a Rumble video window open to look at your chats as well. So feel free to join the conversation that way, and we will react to your comments. We will read your comments on stream. No need to super chat, anything like that. We just like to have good conversation on this podcast. Speaking of super chats, gotta give a shout out to 4 awesome people. That's Post, K Kairos, 99 Crime, and Alex Egbert for supporting us for $5 a month at mixedmedia.locals.com. $5 a month is very little, but it does so much for us. Excuse me. It helps us to go through the metamorphosis of the show as we are trying to figure ourselves out and expand. We've got plans to potentially bring on a producer, potentially, if this all goes well, and that's because of our supporters, and that's fantastic, because honestly, we can't do this on our own. It's just way too much work to actually expand the podcast. So if you like the content, the best thing you can do, besides going to mixedmedia.locals.com, is to share the content with other people. Okay, I'm done shilling. So Ben's not here today. I'm not sure if he'll show up, there you go. I'm not sure if he'll show up later, but we'll progress, and if he shows up, we'll have a chat with him. But otherwise, how was your week, Nathan?
It's been all right. If you're on the Discord, you know that I'm working on this bot now for the channel. It's kind of cool. I don't know if maybe I should look to see if this already exists. Like someone's done this already, because I might be just redoing work that has already been done, but I never heard of it before. Basically, trying to make a Discord bot that is able to, you're able to query it questions about what we said, and it can answer, and that it would use AI. So there's speech to text AI that's pretty good. It's not perfect for sure. There's definitely issues, but it's actually relatively cheap. I was surprised by that. It was that and the potential complexity of it that at first deterred me from it. But then I saw it's actually really easy to use, to program, to get to do what I want to do, and it costs 57 cents per hour, which is okay. If I want to do this for all episodes of the podcast that have ever existed, what episode are we on right now? We're on
131.
131. And these are like 2-hour episodes sometimes. And it's like, oh, that would cost a lot of money to retroactively do it. But might just do it, very slowly. I'll go through the back catalog, but I can't. I'm not gonna do that all at once. But yeah, so the speech to text part is already done. That was the simplest part. And now I'm considering. So the specific AI I'm using is from a company called Assembly AI. They specifically deal with audio stuff. So they have a large language model that is able to, you're able to query questions about the transcription. So I might use that, or I might use ChatGPT, or I guess the GPT API or something like that, because that seems to be more like general purpose, and maybe depending on like what format I want things in, might just be better. Might use a combination of both. I don't really know. We'll see, I guess. So yeah, that's what's up.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. That's cool. I would love more than anything to have automatic timestamping so that we could just pull the transition timestamps and put them in the description so that like our thing is chopped up properly. Because our news segments sometimes are pretty long, and I have a feeling people get like, when are they actually going to start talking about the titled content?
Oh, you're saying you want to go? Oh, so the cool thing about Assembly AI's products is that they have one where you can like automatically put chapters to your transcription. So yeah, I haven't tried that out at all, so I don't know how effective that is. It could be really bad, it could be really good. I don't really know. I guess I can give it a shot. And yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I was actually just thinking about I assume that would break it out even more granularly, but I was actually just thinking about like news segment and then the main topic, then arguing with Reddit so that it's like, obvious, which parts of the show are what.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible, but that's for example something I'd try to. Well, if it's not possible, I'd try to use like OpenAI stuff for whatever, because then you're like, okay, here's like some data. Like it's kind of annoying because I guess I'm not the most knowledgeable about AI models or whatever. Maybe there's some that would fit this perfectly. I don't know about, but like with large language models, it's like it is mostly about natural language and not about like data processing, which is kind of annoying. So it's like, here's some data and spit out the right answer. It's like sometimes depends on I guess the thing you input and what you expect of an output. Right. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's the worse than you expect. And something I kind of learned with my the website that has currently not been developed in a long time. It's kind of annoying. I got to get back on that. Just when you get a job, time disappears. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to that. For me, I don't think there's terribly much going on that would be interesting to y'all. So, yeah. Just kind of on the daily grind. I'm redoing my website. I can't wait to share it with people because I highly, highly, highly recommend, no matter what web platform you're using. I don't care if it's Wix. I don't care if it's WordPress. I don't care if you're the most awesome WordPress wizard ever and you can make it do whatever the heck you want. Short of actually coding the site yourself, which is, I think Nathan does that for his one website. Short of doing that, Webflow changed my life. Webflow is the best thing that's ever happened. Webflow is basically giving you UI controls over code, basically, in a very nice way. So
UI controls over code? Yes.
So basically, you can place HTML elements anywhere, but the way it does it is so intuitive, so it's not like Wix where you can just kind of place anything anywhere, but that's because Wix is like kind of built on top of this like Wix whatever fancy garbage is underneath that makes it super slow, actually, and that's why
it's very slow.
It's very bothersome. But Webflow is actually just straight up HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's just classic web design. And so when you position things on the screen and you put things around, everything is works the same way. You have divs, you have everything works the same way. But it gives you control over those things. This is not sponsored, by the way. I'm just so excited about this software. But if Webflow would like to sponsor the show, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, it just gives you very intuitive control over all those things. It's not drag and drop intuitiveness, which I realize a lot of platforms are focusing on stupidly. Like, that's just not necessary. You don't need to treat a website like it's a Word document. That's not actually terribly. I don't see what that does for you, like, in particular, with web design, because you want actually neat and well-placed things. So, I mean, so it just gives you nice tools like grids and, like, flex containers and things like this that have some underlying code already, but you actually, when you change the parameters, you're just changing CSS parameters, HTML stuff, like, everything is working, and you can basically just let your imagination run wild. The templates give you a nice base set of, like, objects that are pre-built, and its like way of doing responsiveness is not only modern, unlike Wix and other things. It's the more modern way of doing it, but is extremely easy, and it's fast, lightning fast. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it. Just look it up. Your mind will be blown. You can try it for free. I'm actually never paid for Webflow subscription just yet. I will pay for it once I have to export my code. So you don't even have to pay for it, And then they just give you the whole code package. That's it. It's yours. It's absolutely yours, which is just so
interesting.
So awesome. So awesome.
I have to check it out. Interesting.
Yeah. Kai says you shouldn't treat anything like a Word document. Word documents should only be used to write and document things, nothing else, including work instructions. Yeah, that.
Well, here's something. I have a coworker who has a website, and he's talking about how, like, I guess he prefers the more raw nature of websites, and so his website is just essentially markdown. Like, he just says that he wishes, like, pages are essentially markdown. Which is interesting.
Yeah. I think once I share the website, people are going to be like, you did all of that, and underlying it is just like basic stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Like it'll be pretty spectacular and feel very modern.
But does it translate to mobile well is the question.
Yeah, I've already done some. I'm focusing right now on desktop usage, mostly because my audience is most likely, oddly, like, this is not normal. But so in your market, it's the exact opposite. But for me, my audience is more likely to care about desktop experience than mobile experience. So I'm designing from desktop down into mobile. So I haven't really gone there, but I've taken peeks at mobile screen configurations and stuff like this and see how things, like, and you have to develop, obviously, with responsiveness in mind. You can't just, like, not think about it. So you can't just hard code, like, values, I suppose, and expect to get, like, good results. So you have to think about it, but it's working well so far, even without changing some things up for mobile. So yeah, pretty good. Highly recommend. Kai says Markdown is amazing. 99 Crime says Markdown is much nicer than HTML to write. Yeah, that makes complete sense. HTML is garbage.
So bad. It's so verbose. It's so, I don't know. Ugh.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. Okay, how about news?
Nothing much. I had something to say, and I forgot. What was it? Oh, Call of Duty Warzone Mobile launched, and I think got like maybe $1.2 million in 4 days or something like that. Or $1.4 million. And the U.S. accounts for 47% of the shooter's lifetime spending. So there you go. That's kind of crazy. Apparently, the second largest spender was Chile at $202,500, making 9% of the game's revenue.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of random. The U.S. was accounted for $1.1 million of that. So that's crazy. Yeah, okay. That's all I have, though, really.
Sweet. I actually have some gaming news myself. So this has to do with the City Skylines debacle, which I'm following, and it's become actually kind of weirdly entertaining as Paradox attempts to fix this problem. But they released a gigantic update that caused a just crazy storm of angry people who bought the ultimate. Pre-ordered the ultimate pack, and this again is why you don't pre-order games. I don't know how many times we have to teach you, old man. You know, like you don't pre-order games unless you're like utterly confident. I guess you could pre-order things like Telltale games when they existed or something like this, where it's like basically the same underlying software, I guess, and you wanted to pre-download.
Yeah, but the story
or
could be
whatever.
bad.
That's
like,
true.
How do you know?
But if you are know for 100% fact that even if it was bad, you would not regret pre-ordering it.
So basically, never.
Anyway, Kai's asking why did the pack anger people? So I'll I'll get that out there. But basically, the pack was to get their ultimate pre-subscribers their pre-subscribed ultimate package before the deadline, before the date at which the date that had that contractually obligated to deliver the ultimate package to those who paid more money. And it was significantly more, by the way. Like the base game, I think, is $60, and I think if you paid for the ultimate package, which came with a DLC pass and everything, I think it was like $85 or $80 or maybe it was $90. Like it was expensive. Compared to other games, you could argue whether games are rightly valued or whatever, but compared to other games, it's expensive. So people are expecting, delivery, and they basically did the bare minimum. The meme that is really taking everyone aback is they released a beach pack DLC where you're supposed to get all these like beachside sort of like assets, basically art assets, and they're all basically not beach assets. They're a bunch of assets, but none of them like are they kind of like took a house and they stuck an umbrella on it kind of thing. Like it's like
wow.
And
What's
these
this,
devs
thing called?
Say again.
What's this like edition called?
I think it's called the Beach DLC, the specific
Beach Properties, looks like.
Yeah. But everyone's really, really, really mad at the assets that came with it, and probably for good reason. But what more like just like absolutely perplexes me or like entertains me or whatever about this whole situation is like the company still lacks any desire to be transparent with their customer. It seems like it's probably coming from the publisher, but I'm not like other people and just like don't assume the devs are complicit in some way, shape, or form. I have no idea, is what I'll say. But it's what
3 out of 10 on Steam. Very negative, 480 reviews.
Yeah,
for the DLC.
Oh boy.
This DLC is $10. What the heck?
They should just simply be honest. Like, I don't know how hard it is to get through their thick skulls. Just be honest. Like, just say, we don't have the manpower, we mistimed everything, we shouldn't release the game, we're going to refund all the DLC. That's going to hurt, like, a lot, financially, but honestly, at this point, you're destroying, like, your brand entirely at this point. So it's been perplexing as I watch this happen in 2024, when everyone should have learned the lesson by now that you don't do this with any product. It has nothing to do with gaming specifically. Social media has changed the game. So, just be honest and open. But I guess that's too difficult. I don't know. Ask for forgiveness. I don't know. Anyway, that's news on that front. And then other news, I had something else.
Oh, Kai said, isn't story the one thing Telltale is trusted with? Referring to when I said, I think you said, Telltale's, you're talking about pre-ordering and Telltale's being potentially a safe bet because, they kind of do their thing every time. Well, yeah, I mean, that is true. They do their thing every time. Well, when they existed, or at least. But But you never know. I was like, I just really hurt to wait. Unless like maybe you get a deal or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, you do like. What is the incentive for them to give you a deal? That's the thing that kind of susses me out. It's like, oh, you buy whether or not you would have liked it post reviews, or not liked, or would have bought it post reviews. A little bit, I don't know. Maybe argument for Telltale Games. I guess I wouldn't be too upset. I'd just be questioning.
Yeah. The last bit of news I just remembered is something I touched on way back when. Everyone's heard of it now, so I guess it's not probably news to anyone anymore. But P. Diddy's home was raided, and this is following the same exact pattern as Mr. Schmeckstein. I don't know, to avoid any YouTube problems, yeah, it's turning out to be the same exact paradigm, and I think we're going to probably learn roughly the same amounts of facts about it. And again, like I've said on this podcast many times, that's actually what I wanted to make potentially an episode, was the incentivization of this kind of behavior in media in general. That might be the next topic, actually. Be difficult to talk about potentially, but I will attempt. But yeah, his home was raided, and he seems to be unscathed himself so far. But we'll see how that situation goes. But I only mention it just because I mentioned it when it first happened, and I think it's become a bigger story, so everyone knows what's happening now. So, yeah, there you go. Shall we go on to our topic of the day?
Real quick, I think we missed this message. Kai said, Irving triggered my flashbacks to all the early Catholic game reviews, WordPress theming. That reminded me, so I was like, okay, reminds me of Catholic game reviews. I gotta check that out. And I went to the website, and there was a review yesterday, actually. But I don't know how, like, I'm talking to the right person, Kai, but if you're able to influence it in some way, could they add like a RSS feed or like some way of subscribing? Because I just, it'd be nice to like know when these things come out, because I'm interested in these reviews.
Yes. Kai also says, not gonna lie, I would love a one-off quarantined topic episode about celebrities who may not have harikiri'd. Let's put it that way. I'll also try to avoid saying these phrases as well, because the YouTube bot be absolutely crazy. So it's not just like getting videos taken down or anything. I'm not worried about that particularly. It's like getting unranked. Like, that's pretty bad. So Kai also says, we do have an RSS feed.
Oh, what?
I don't know why it didn't appear on the screen yet. Oh, there it is. We do have an RSS feed. I may be able to see if we can add an RSS feed icon to the bottom. Okay.
Usually you just... Oh, I found it. Yeah, usually you just go to the website and add /RSS, and that seems to have worked. So, yeah, I didn't see an icon, but let's click the feed exists. I'll subscribe. Cool.
Sweet. All right, we're going to be talking about Planet of the Apes for the next bit. If you're unfamiliar with the show, this was our news segment. Yeah, it went on for, 8 minutes or so. Actually, more than that. Why is this timer wrong? This timer's completely wrong. Anyway, went on for a bit. But now we're going on to our Planet of the Apes section, where I'll be dissecting the trilogy. It's going to be quite conversational. In fact, I actually don't have any notes for this one, and we'll get to why as we go into it. And then finally, we'll end with Nathan reacting to hot takes on gaming, with arguing with Reddit. So that'll be the order of the night. And as usual, feel free to comment while we talk, and we'll definitely react to them as we have been for the whole show. All right, here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
And welcome back to Mixed Media. This is our movie segment, and before I start talking about Planet of the Apes, the topic of the night, we should reintroduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella, based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
And my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer. I'm enunciating for the AI. Let's see if it gets it right this time.
Yeah. I feel like the worst part for you is that the room is like slightly echoey. It's got like a.
So what would be the? So I could totally do that thing, the cheap thing where you buy like a wood plank and staple a towel to it. Like, would that solve all my issues?
Well, I don't even know what that is.
Oh. I guess that sounds kind of crazy. It's just like instead of buying like one of those expensive sound pads, like apparently towels are pretty good. Like they're not obviously they're not the expensive sound pad, right? But like in terms of like something that costs like no money, you can buy towels in packs, right? You just take a towel and then you just need something to put it on, so you can put like a wood plank or something like that, it's like cardboard or whatever it is, and staple it on or tape it on or whatever you do, I remember was the YouTuber who made like that pinhole camera? That guy he makes stuff. I can't remember his name, but yeah, he made like he was trying to test like sound panels. Is that they're called sound panels? Is that right? Okay, sound panels versus like towel essentially, and he was like testing the frequencies that like bounced off.
Oh, okay,
I guess because I guess I don't know what like you'd want. I guess you wouldn't want like I don't know certain frequencies to stand out more than others in the reverb because it might sound weird. I don't know, but it was worse. but like it wasn't like horrible. It was pretty good because he did some tests and whatever. I was like, oh, okay, that
yeah. Okay, you describe it like that. Yeah, I've done stuff like that on sets. So yeah, that actually will work.
Oh, okay.
Quite well.
If it can go on set, I'm sure it can go for this podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just starting the segment for some people filtering in. Some see some people filtering in here. So I'll jump right into it. So what I did was for the past 3 weeks, I watched the entire Planet of the Apes trilogy. And if you're unfamiliar, those are three movies that were done from like 2009 or something. I can't remember when the first film was made up until 2017. And it just so we're all not confused, these films are named things that make it hard to remember which is which. The first one is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Rise, beginning. Okay, so that makes sense. Then
that sounds like it'd be the second one.
Like, kind of, right? Kind of.
The first one would be Planet of the Apes, right?
Let's think of The Rising Sun. It's the beginning of the day. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Then there's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is also beginning. Dang. See, this is just confusing.
Should have said like sunset.
Now I'm questioning whether I have the order correct or not. No, I do have it right. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and then we end with War for the Planet of the Apes. So War for the Planet of the Apes is the third film. And the reason I ended up reviewing this is because this is a highly coveted trilogy. It's often ranked like one of the best trilogies of modern cinema, of cinema as of late, right? And it comes from a pedigree of other really liked films, which I'll probably watch later in comparison. So there's like a really old set of films, like in the 1940s, I believe, or 1950s, I can't remember, which is also, I believe, like 2 or 3 films. I'm not terribly, I'm not a Planet of the Apes aficionado, so forgive me. And then there's a Tim Burton made a Planet of the Apes film, which is really random, but I really now want to see it to also do a comparison. He rebooted the franchise sometime in the late 90s or something like this, or early 2000s. Then 20th Century Fox commissions these 3 films to be made, knowing, I believe, that it was going to be a series of franchise. Now, the Planet of the Apes series kind of, and this is important, like the landscape of what was coming out at the time is actually kind of important. Came out in the time where Marvel was starting to hit its stride, right? And Marvel basically shut down cinema entirely, shut out everything. You didn't get any independent films anymore. You didn't get any just one-off storytelling anymore. And so they're trying to build a universe out of Planet of the Apes, right? So they set out knowing that they're going to try to create a universe here. Now, in 2024, we're getting a 4th installment in our trilogy. I hope we're going to view... I mean, spoiler, I might not watch it. I don't know if I care about this franchise that much to watch it, but maybe I'll do it for completeness sake. I'm not sure. But it's called Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Kingdom for the... I don't remember. Kingdom is going to be the 4th installment. Hopefully it'll be the first of a next trilogy and not like weirdly a 4th film. It seems as though they're starting a new thing because it's time disjointed from these three films. So I think that's how we're supposed to look at this, is that a beginning of maybe a new trilogy. So we're Star Warsing over here. We're just going to keep Star Warsing the Planet of the Apes. Okay. With that background being said, I wanted to investigate, because I remember in high school I watched the original Rise of the Planet of the Apes with James Franco. Actually, before we do this, I just remembered I wanted to play for you the trailer, or at least a piece of the trailer from Kingdom, which admittedly the trailer is actually really well cut. So this should actually not be bad. So, it's actually not in the same formula of like the you get the things going on, and then you get the quip, and then you get the blah, and then you know exactly what I'm talking about, right, Nathan?
Yeah, that's how it is.
That really boring formula that like every single movie was like, and then you end with a joke, you know. It's actually not in that formula at all. So hopefully we're done with that. I would be very happy if we're done with that. But let me play a bit of the trailer. And the only reason I'm happy to play the trailer is because trailers don't tend to get nuked because they're trying to make people react to the trailers. So let's see here. Let me pull this up. Okay, and by the way, in this episode, I really want to understand the series. And again, that's kind of a spoiler for my opinions, but like, I don't get the hype. Well, the title kind of gives this away too. So if you disagree with anything I say, you have some background from the filmmakers or context that would add to it, I am totally down to hear it. So just put it in the chat, and I will definitely be looking out for those, because I'm not here trying to just poo on a film for no reason. Okay, or a film franchise. Okay, so here is the film. I had to do some rejiggering. There we go. The new film. I'll play it with audio.
Are you familiar with the concept of evolution? In their time, humans were capable of many great things. They could fly like eagles fly. They could speak across oceans.
Whoa, bad timing with today's news image.
But now it is
Unintended.
our time. And it is my kingdom. We will learn. Apes will learn. I will learn. And I will conquer.
Alright, I'm gonna stop it there. But actually a pretty well cut trailer. So definitely if you're a fan of this series, you're probably hyped. Okay, so the interesting thing about this trailer is that there's a few nods to the originals. Now, again, I'm not a Planet of the Apes aficionado at all, but I do know something about the originals, which is that the whole idea... this is technically a spoiler. Technically. But there's like a famous shot that like literally spoils the whole film that I've seen many, many times. And I also feel like it should be rather obvious if I understand the original film well. It should be obvious what how the film ends. So spoiler if you're really sensitive to spoilers. And I am too, but this one I don't feel is terribly bad. But you know, the whole idea of the original franchise is that there's this astronaut dude who rediscovers Earth after like some whatever, I don't know what the time period is. And what he finds is that Earth is run by apes. and the humans are like now like the ape equivalent. Yeah, so basically they've swapped roles. And so this new trailer seems to be taking up the old story arc. And hopefully what's going to be like a new trilogy if they're going to do this properly. So I'm not judging this new trilogy. It's actually directed by a different director and has a different writing staff, has a completely different cast. So it sounds like they're kind of starting afresh. It's been 7 years since the last one, so okay. I'm not going to judge that one. I might also watch it. We'll see. But in this trilogy, and the reason I didn't write a script for this is because I ended up being quite, don't get mad at me. Just disagree with me in the chat if you have to disagree. I found it to be rather thematically disjointed, and so very rather uninteresting. Minus the second film, but that doesn't make up for the entire disjointed nature of the entire trilogy. So I'll go through the films kind of one by one and give you my general impression, then we'll drill down into the themes of the movies and kind of pick apart my critique here. I don't think these are terrible films, but I do think that they're rather overhyped, as the title says. Okay, so with the first film, we've got Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and we've got James Franco playing a character who's a scientist. And kind of the formation of the origin story of the series is rather typical. Now, if you know me from this show, you know that typical does not equal bad, right? I never say that. I don't say that repeating ideas or, representing images or using different story formats is bad. This is definitely a classic blockbuster 3-act structure type of film. It's not bad for it. In fact, because it's that sort of blockbuster, easygoing kind of 3-act structure film, it's extremely accessible. Accessibility is good if that's what you're going for, and for a series that's taking off, being accessible is probably a good idea. Especially if you're trying to be a big franchise competing against Marvel movies, right? So, like, I'm not opposed to any of those things. It might make it less interesting in the grand scheme of other films in terms of the structure and the ideas going into it. However, when you are representing different structures and tropes and things like this, what you want to see is a reason for you to retell it. Right? Like, we don't want you to just, like, remake Cinderella live action like Disney has been doing, right? Or something like this, like, with no motivation at all. No, like, cultural impetus. Like, nothing about today says you should be doing that, right? You're not adding to anyone's life. You're not adding to the cultural landscape. You're not doing anything interesting. When you're representing the same sort of typical structures, underlying structures, we want you to have something worth saying, right? Like, you have to be worth existing, right? And I guess that's kind of what I'm going to be questioning as I go on here, but partly. But it's also actually a rather interesting film in its premise, right? So what are the typical structures that we're going to go through here? We've got the typical corporatist, disaffected scientist in a corporatist body. You've seen films like that, right, Nathan? Like, where you have one person who wants to do things for the good of humanity, and the rest of everyone around him is just interested in money, and he's the sort of scientific hero of the film.
Probably. I don't know why nothing can come to mind at the moment, but like, that sounds like it'd be an archetypical like idea.
Right. So now we've got sort of like we've got something of a savior kind of presentation going on here. It's kind of light, and we'll see it transfer from our main character James Franco to our new main character eventually, Caesar, the main ape played by Andy Serkis. And we'll see sort of like the roles kind of transfer, this sort of savior imagery kind of like transfer over to Andy Serkis's character. But basically the premise here is that you have this sort of corporatist... a good example might be Jurassic Park, right? Would be like another kind of example. Anyway, what was I saying? So you have James Franco's character who wants to develop Alzheimer's reducing drugs for the sake of saving people with Alzheimer's. Spoiler, slight spoiler, very slight spoiler. His dad has Alzheimer's, right? So his dad has Alzheimer's, so it's kind of a personal thing. You learn that within like the first 30 minutes or so. And so it's just kind of taken a personal dimension, but also he's kind of got this sort of altruistic bent. The interesting part, and what this kind of story has an opportunity to handle, beside the typical sort of arc like this, is that his altruism extends to the apes. Right, so it's not just I want to help all the humans. I also don't want to hurt the apes that I'm testing on. Right, there's sort of like a animal activist in him, and this is going to become important later on because this film gets very confusing with the messages it's trying to throw off. At the very beginning, we get a very clear idea that the CDC has funded this entire film. It's very bizarre. When I say this, I'm not kidding. Like, this is not like a conjecture or anything. Like, it's product placement. Like, literally, there's like there's at the beginning of the film, there's a shot where this Jeep rolls in and it's got the CDC logo on it, and out steps our tertiary female character, right? Like the love interest, right? She steps out of the vehicle, and she's the all-knowing scientist for the entire film, and there's like several lines that are clear product placement. It's just like it's like, oh, you're from the CDC, you must know everything. It's like, okay, we get it. It's just funded partly by the CDC. Now, there's actually nothing in this film that's like particularly. Oh, okay, actually, there's a few things about this film. One part about this in the film is kind of bizarre because there's a pandemic in the film. It has like a weird. It has a weird sense of parallelism to real life, which is very weird. Oh, my camera died. That hasn't happened in a very long time. I'm surprised.
Yeah, it's kind of rare nowadays.
Yeah. I'll fix this in a moment. Actually, I'll fix it now. Give me 1 second. Okay, while that's going up, I didn't actually remember, because again, like I said, I saw this film in high school. I didn't remember that portion of the film at all. So I wasn't thinking about this aspect of the film or anything like this before I made this episode or something like this. I just was like, what the heck is happening? This is bizarre. But in any case, that's what the CDC does. And actually, there's not quite much mention. You know, this stuff is kind of just plot oriented. There's nothing particularly interesting to say other than very obviously the CDC paid money for product placement here. Let's see. Trying to fix my camera. What the heck? Capture device could not be found. What?
You tried unplugging and replugging?
Oh, I have my camera set improperly. Hold on. There we go. Now it's set correctly. Hold on here. Thank you for your patience. There we go. Okay. Oh, I've zoomed in by accident. All right. So, that's super interesting, and maybe there's some more to dissect in that that other people can dissect. But I actually found that there was nothing particularly interesting on that front at all, beyond that it kind of fueled part of the plot, but not in any interesting way. So the entire premise here is that through the actions of our main character, who's a flawed hero, who takes his altruism to an extreme when he wants to save his dad so bad that he grows like basically a god complex, right? Like he thinks that his needs are more important than everyone else's needs, and that he as the big brain scientist can kind of control nature in order to fixing his dad, right? That's kind of the idea we're getting here. And so what he does is he takes the medicine home with him, and gives it to his dad when it's like a complete experimental drug. Like, it's like, like, this is clearly irresponsible. You know what I mean? And so he gives it to his dad, and his dad ends up getting better. To everyone's surprise, his dad ends up getting better. But then the main character ends up giving it to the monkeys and kind of doing this behind the scenes. And then our sort of like classic corporate, like the guy who doesn't want people to succeed because he wants money too much kind of guy, you know. Our boss dude finds out that he's doing this experimentation and forces him to shut it down because he's afraid of lawsuits, which is actually quite sensible if you think about what's going on here. It's quite bad, actually. Of course, the thing breaks out of monkey chambers, and we get this sort of pandemic of medicine. It's kind of weird. It's hard to describe. In fact, I don't actually understand the mechanics of how anything's happening in this film, but basically, there's this sort of they call the simian flu that's kind of making its rounds amongst the people. As this is happening, of course, he has taken home a monkey who was about to be killed because he was given the medicine. His name is Caesar. Caesar turns out to be like the most successful out of his experiments because he keeps giving Caesar more and more of the drug until he becomes basically a high-functioning ape. So high-functioning that he can do math, he can do what do you call those puzzles? Spatial puzzles, like when you like spatial acuity and stuff like this. He can sign language now extremely fluently. If you know anything about apes before this particular film, you'll know that apes can sign language, right? Like, they can sign language with people. They can just about form like basic notions, basic sentences, not terribly complex speech. What's the most interesting that we've observed, and this is kind of a side note, actually it's not just a side note, it's actually quite important, is that apes don't ask questions or form abstract thoughts, right? So like they don't say like, what's the meaning of life? It's not that's not a thing that comes out of them, right? Like, they don't ask anything. They just give reports on their own state, right? Or a desire, or like someone else's state that they can observe, or something like this. They can do like basic recognition of like different things, like color and stuff like this. But there's no like sort of abstraction.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. I remember learning about this in middle school. So that's kind of cool. And that's important because in the film we make it very clear that this ape can abstract things, right? So like, you know, like this ape is starting to have an existential crisis. So the rest of the film ends up being about the existential crisis of Caesar as he becomes more and more human, right? And our main character, James Franco, tackling the problems that he's caused in the world by releasing the pandemic, basically, and also like the moral quandaries of like loving his monkey child, basically, his ape child, and not wanting to put him down. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. There's some great scenes in there. So a few notes.
Frankenstein type, loosely, I guess. It reminds me of that kind of.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so again, nothing too crazy, nothing too different in terms of playing around with these sorts of tropes and stuff like that. It's very tropey, very, very tropey. And it's a blockbuster, so it's going to be more tropey than average. So let's drill down into specific points in here. There are some fantastic scenes in this film. Fantastic scenes. One of the most memorable scenes of the film is done really well. And this is the scene where Caesar speaks for the first time with his vocal cords. Now, again, in real life, apes can't vocalize. their vocal cords are literally not meant for speaking. So like they literally cannot do, like physically incapable of doing this, right? But we're kind of getting to this idea that he is so rational that his very physics is changing to become more like man. And this is also important because we understand other tropes and images and stuff like this in history and whatever. And these things would be things like, word, right? Like the word, or like speaking things into existence is so particular to humans, right? Particular to our rationality, but also, I would say, our image-bearing nature with God, right? That it's crazy, right, to see an animal take on the same sort of characteristics. So that's where this film is going. In that same vein, the film is extremely scientistic. I don't know how else to put that phrase. It's scientism. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. But scientism is the sort of idea that science is kind of the only way in which we can rationally know things. And it's clearly wrong. I mean, I can demonstrate it to you in front of you right now, which is you cannot prove scientism with science. QED. Done. Like you can't do it. So you cannot demonstrate scientism using the scientific procedures or whatever. Not to mention there's a whole bunch of other epistemic problems, but I won't go down that bunny hole. But this film kind of has that worldview, and it ends up kind of making it very shallow because the worldview, as I demonstrated to you, is not like particularly good because it's so ridiculous on its face. And one of the points I want to make with this trilogy is I often talk about the audiences, the filmmaker and the audience have a relationship. The filmmaker has the responsibility of making a world so compelling and engaging and what's the word I'm looking for? Engrossing, whatever, that the audience wants to surrender their hard lock on what reality really is, right? So, and this we call the suspension of disbelief, right? So it's incumbent on the filmmaker to create an environment where the suspension of disbelief is possible, right? Or is encouraged, right? If that's what they're going for. Not all films have to go for this, but, most films, I would say, a vast majority of films, are going for the audience suspending their disbelief instead of staying inside their own mind while they're just watching the film, right? They instead want you to put yourself inside the film, right? That requires suspension of disbelief. And that's part of the filmmaker's job, is to do this through various competent uses of filmmaking technique, right? It's partly the audience's job, incumbent on the audience to want to do this also in return, right? And this is just coming at things with an open mind. Like, you just kind of come at the film and you say, if you're good, I will let you take me away, right? Like, I'll let you carry me away. Now, on the part of the audience, this can be kind of dangerous, right? Which is that you can be a little too willing to suspend your disbelief, which is that you've stopped cognating entirely, when in fact the entire purpose of art, I would say, is actually to supercognate, is to like lift your mind out of the normal and into what's the word? Transcendent places, right? Kai says, regarding language, I need to send Irving some Walker Percy. Sure, send me. I don't know what that is, but send me. I love talking about this stuff. So yeah, we're actually supposed to engage our faculties more. It's supposed to, when I suspend my disbelief and give it to the artist, I'm supposed to be taken away with something that makes me better or otherwise enriches my life, right? So that doesn't, again, repeating things I've said in the past before, but that doesn't mean the movie has to be super deep. That's not the same thing, right? It can just be super entertaining and do the same things. But in that entertainment, you cannot feed me garbage, right? Like you can't, while I'm open to, while I'm open to what you have to give me, don't serve me crap. That's not the point. The point is, if I'm even escaping in a film, if the whole point of the film is some sort of escapism, my mind is actually still more engaged than when I'm at work, right? I'm analyzing, how do I feel about this? Like, this all happens subconsciously. How do I feel about this? If I was in the same situation, what would I be doing? Wow, that was super cool, and I've never seen anything like that before. Or, like, whatever it is still higher thoughts going on than just being a vegetable, right? So here, Kai says, 20th century Catholic novelist, big into semiotics. Oh, pretty cool. Cool.
I gotta look up what semiotics is now.
So, with this kind of film, and you're going to take off on such a kind of shallow worldview, which kind of hampers its ability to make any interesting points particularly, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to surrender my intellect and into something that's actually sub-rational, right? Like, it's actually not rational. If you're an attentive audience goer, you won't let that happen. You'll just kind of be like, this doesn't... I can't surrender to A equals not A. I can't surrender to 2 + 2 = 5. I can't surrender to, unicorns do and don't exist simultaneously, right? Whatever. Like, you can't actually submit your rational mind to something irrational. And you can debate, whether certain things are rational or unrational. I'm getting into the philosophical bag here, but that's the best way I can make this interesting. I'm sorry. You can make arguments in films as to whether what are rational ideas or not, but you're still engaging the rational faculty by making arguments that are coherent. And even if they're not ultimately coherent, they're at least still engaging, and then you can ultimately reject it once you're out of the environment. When you have a film like this, and it's kind of just like, all there is science, which is, again, patently false. If you're a well-adjusted viewer, you're just gonna go, all right. Like, you've made it harder for me to enjoy your film on its face. I hope that makes sense. In any case, that's kind of the angle we're coming at, and it leads to very disjointed messaging throughout the entire film. The main thing here is we're asking a question, which is whether an ape can acquire the same fundamental value as a human being. Right. That's kind of one of the questions kind of being asked. But actually, I think the deeper theme of this film is the God complex is bad. Now, this is weird. This ends up getting weird, conflicting ideas going on here that don't actually jive, and the filmmaker doesn't actually make square, right? So what we have is the filmmaker saying, "Don't mess with nature," kind of like Jurassic Park, right? Like, don't mess with nature. Don't appoint yourself God by turning these monkeys into humans, right? Or whatever, right? Don't mess with what you don't understand, right? But simultaneously, we have the main character helping Caesar to start a violent revolt against humans that actually kills people. Lots of people, too.
Yeah, I'll say this. I didn't expect this breakdown to turn this way, because I was under the impression, I guess maybe from just trailers I saw or something, that Planet of the Apes is a non-serious movie about apes that just shoot people and people that shoot apes.
No, it's actually more. It's definitely more serious than that. 100%. Yeah. And we have moments throughout this film where the filmmaker could have made their position clear. And that's fine with me. If you make a position clear, at least I can then, again, rationally engage with the position you're making. But it's kind of a weird, fuzzy, I don't know what you're trying to say. On one hand, you're trying to say that James Franco was horrible for experimenting on his dad and forcing Caesar to be enlightened or whatever, right? And then on the other hand, you're saying these humans are so bad to these apes that these apes can go kill people. These are kind of hard ideas to square with each other. And so it ends up being kind of okay, I'm going to try to ignore anything you're trying to say about any of these things and just enjoy the filmmaking. which happens to be quite enjoyable. So it really has that going for it. What does that mean? Overall, I give it a 2. I give it a 2.5 out of 5, which to me is average. Average. I only give it this much analysis because of this film, the franchise's reputation. Otherwise, I'd probably consider this a quite forgettable, kind of popcorn film. Like it just wouldn't really cross my mind to have to analyze it to this depth. You know what I mean? I would have been like, I really liked Andy Serkis's performance as Caesar. Very entertaining. Again, very iconic scenes that kind of stick in your memory. But the whole story wouldn't if I didn't have to analyze it. So I probably forget the plot entirely in a month. But very entertaining performances, except for James Franco's, which is horrible. I don't understand what happened to him in this film, but his character is so punchable the entire film. I really want to just reach into the film and punch him in the face. Like, he's so annoying, very stupid, says stupid lines, just very unenjoyable performance from James Franco. Andy Serkis stole the show as Caesar, and then you start thinking about the technical aspects if you're a film nut like me, and the technical aspects of this film are nuts. I don't understand it. It's insane.
Was Caesar was it like a person that like with a motion capture suit on, or like what was it? Or okay.
Yeah, so Andy Serkis is wearing a motion capture suit. There's a great behind the scenes clips that are like super viral. Of Andy Serkis in his motion capture suit acting like an ape. And it's so good. Andy Serkis is very talented. So is James Franco. Not in this film. I don't really get what happened there. It is what it is. Second film, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So this last film ends with Caesar in the redwood forest of California, right? They kind of make this their new home, and other enlightened apes join him. He unites them under his rationality to say apes must be rational in order to stamp out their existence before all the humans. This film, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, kind of takes its start from the beginning from the end. So we're kind of just like just kind of carry through the story. Except it's a little bit it's time disjointed, but like nothing of interest has happened in between then, other than the humans getting wiped out by a pandemic. So that happens. Not completely though. So there's a minority of people who are naturally immune to the simian flu, is I think what they call it. And the apes then have time to thrive and kind of create their own like little society on their own, which is kind of reminiscent of like what people think of as like cavemen, you know what I mean? Like sort of like primitive, whatever. They've got spears, not even with a stone arrowhead at the top or something, like just like a straight up pointed stick, kind of thing. And they have primitive symbology amongst themselves where they have like, the doctors have like the like little, like a little brim hat thing, and so they're kind of building this like human-esque primitive human sort of a thing. Caesar feels like he completely, and I'm kind of just flowing my analysis into this one because it all kind of connects in that none of these movies work well with each other. So Caesar ends up kind of shifting character almost entirely. And I'll explain that in a moment. But from a production standpoint, the director is different. It's Matt Reeves. You might recognize his name because he was the director of The Batman, his recent success, The Batman. Fantastic film, by the way. So he's a very capable director. At least he can be. And it's also partly written by Matt Reeves and partly written by the person who wrote the first story, and then there's a third person tacked on to the writing team. So, interesting. Still made by 20th Century Fox. Rip 20th Century Fox. Now it's Disney. Horrible. But every time I see the logo, I get really sad. I'm not going to lie. Still to this day. But, with the new sort of production, or the new sort of brain of this franchise, we get a completely different flavor. And that kind of makes sense. Different filmmakers, different kind of premises, different thing going on here. So, everything about this film is better. And spoiler again, this film is my favorite of the three by far, like leaps and bounds. Like it's like the most coherent, the most like everything. It's actually, in fact, a good film. Like a properly good film. And spoiler, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5, which is actually on my scale a really good score. That means, in my kind of thinking, that's an average good film, right? So it's above average in the sense that it's above average, compared to all films, but it's the good film that you would love your average watch time to be spent on. If your average watch time was 3.5, you would be probably a pretty happy film watcher, right? So it's a really good film. And maybe in the high 3.5s, honestly. Okay. So those thoughts aside, let's kind of see where we're going here with and see why we kind of completely disjoint from the first film entirely. 1. Style, and I'll go through this really quickly. The writing and direction are utterly different. It's just like night and day, utterly different, and they're vastly superior. We're leaving the blockbuster format entirely now, and we're going to a la carte act system, right? Where you go through acts as you need them, right? Which is, if you're not new to the show, then I love when filmmakers understand how act structure works really well, and they just give the story as many acts as the story actually needs. And I'm not going to go through that concept, in this show. You can check out episodes I've done in the past. Writing 101 is a good episode to get a baseline on that. But the really great part about doing this is it really gave us a lot of room to breathe and have freedom and let the characters really grow into a franchise kind of thing. It's doesn't have a very blockbuster feel, but it's also super accessible still, also super entertaining. Okay, let's go back to the themes here. One of the themes in this film, which I think is actually really brilliant, actually. There's only a few writing problems here that don't let this execute to its maximum, but it's a very good idea coming into it, which is we're going to stop looking at the apes as this Frankenstein, as Nathan said earlier. They're no longer Frankenstein. We're going to view, and this unlocked a different way of viewing these films in my brain that was very good. We've moved on from that. We've moved on from the scientism, and we've moved to a place where we view the apes as a tabula rasa of human beings. Do you know what that is, Nathan? Tabula rasa?
Yeah, like a blank slate.
Yes. And so if you're familiar with blank...
Sorry, I have to say, the only reason why I know that is because of video gaming, as with a lot of random knowledge from the video game Trove, where it's like to put it short, it's like a sandbox game, and you can expand sort of your island or whatever, and with various biomes. And one of them that they had was called Tabula Rasa, and it was just a blank, it was like a flat world in Minecraft essentially. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yes, this idea is super influential in Enlightenment philosophy. In the Enlightenment sense, it's super disagreeable, in my opinion. Very obviously false, but that's a whole story for another day. But from the sort of what I mean in this case, in terms of filmmaking, we are trying to view, we're trying to ask ourselves a question: what if humans specifically? So when I say humans, I really mean it. So apes in this film are a stand-in for new humans. They're not. It doesn't matter that they're apes. They're just apes so that we can visually see a difference. You know what I mean? The ape thing is just a dressing, a trapping of the theme of this film. Really, the idea of this film is: what if humans had a reset button and just kind of got inserted into the world, right? And had to figure everything out on their own all over again. They had no access to technology. They had nothing. They had no context. There's only one person, Caesar, who has ever had a connection with a human before, and kind of has very raw, aspirational, abstract ideas as to what is good, right? And he's now a leader of this thing. He's become king. His name is Caesar. Come on, we knew this was going to happen. And actually, this film ends up paralleling some of Caesar's life, actually, especially towards the end, and I will spoil it eventually, so be wary of that. But he's become king, essentially, and he has to figure out, how do I rule well? Because in this film, he's a good-natured, highly moral character, whereas in the last film, I mean, he's just a moral character, you know what I mean? It's just like generic, like, we should free ourselves is kind of like the vibe. All of a sudden in this film, he's like way more complex, like way more.
Is this one a new director or new writer or something?
Yes, yeah, new team.
So you figure they're just like, I don't know, we're just like, well, it kind of reminds me of Star Wars, where like the first two, I only saw the first two in the sequel trilogy. They just felt like such different vibes, you know. It was like not necessarily a bad thing. At least in those two, it wasn't like contradictory, I guess, you know. Like in this case, it seems to be like literally world breaking. But yeah, it reminds me of that.
Yes. Yeah, I think what happened is the first one was successful. They were like, we're going to pour like some serious money into the second one and allow freedom, which is abnormal. But unfortunately, that will never happen again because now Disney owns 20th Century Fox. So you can kiss that goodbye. But actually, there was a time where some producers' reaction to success, which was to give the thing more gas and more freedom. It's the exact opposite today. So they were able to sort of play with this idea so long as they kept it accessible, very clearly. And they did this very well. Okay, so apes are just stand-ins for new humans. Now they have to deal with some problems because the remaining humans are like dying of like starvation. They like barely scrapping it together, you know, but they still got remnants of technology. They've got guns. They've got, a dam. They've got a dam that is not functioning, that they want to get functioning to get power up. Why do they want to get power up? Partly because power is useful, but partly also because they want to get their radio up so that they could talk to potential other human settlements that might have radios up, and so that they could reorganize society, right? That's kind of the overall goal of the humans in this film. And we find out, my favorite part of this film is that James Franco's character died. Yes. So, you have no idea how happy I was when I found out his character was dead. I was like, yes, no more annoying James Franco performance. Oh, so we've got a much better cast as our main human characters, and it was kind of weird losing James Franco because there's such an emotional underpinning of Caesar's character in the first film. There's kind of a I might be hurting my owner, you know, if I do these things, kind of a moral controversy from Caesar's perspective in the first one. And the second one, we get we get him gone, which is great, but it kind of feels weird, you know. It's like it kind of feels weird for him not to be there since he's so important to the origin story. And he just doesn't even make an appearance at the beginning of the film. Like, he doesn't die on screen or anything. But I'm glad he's gone. And we get a very talented family, or group of people who end up taking his place. Their goal is to fix the dam. The main character of that very much so mirrors James Franco on purpose, because it's going to end up reminding Caesar of Franco, which is going to end up warming his heart to helping them make this dam possible against the wisdom of his council, right? His council was like, we don't want, like, they weren't like inherently violent or anything like that. They were just kind of like, why take the chance when we're just kind of living peacefully in the woods? Like, we could just kind of stay alone, you know, like, why let humans into this place so they can fix a dam when they have guns and all this kind of crazy stuff that we don't have? They could just murder us all, right?
Yeah, they say they don't have guns. I thought they said they have just sticks.
Yeah, so they don't have guns.
Oh, okay.
The humans have guns. I don't know if that was... I misspoke.
Oh, wait. But who has the sticks?
The monkeys. The apes.
Oh, wow. I entirely, like... I thought you were saying that humanity got reset so badly they just had sticks.
No. I was saying that it's as if the apes are humanity reset. Maybe I misspoke.
So the humans get reset at all?
Well, they get like kicked really hard back, like, you know, backwards. They have no tech. There's no power. You know, there's no infrastructure. It's just guns and primitive like farming and like trying to scrap things back together. Basically, it's kind
And
of
so they just live separately within the apes. Like they just don't interact. They have their little borders, or whatever. Is that the idea?
they're not even bordered. The humans live in I think it's San Francisco in the film, either that or L.A. What's near the redwood forest? I never remember. Whichever one. The humans live in the city and the apes are out in the redwood forest, so they're kind of separated, like biomically.
What about what about the rest of the world though? Like
we don't know what's happening with the rest of the world.
Oh,
no.
Okay, I see.
The apes are clearly confined to the redwood forest.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So I understand now. Okay.
Yeah.
And the apes, I guess I have to watch the movie to find out how the apes took over. Never mind, I won't ask. Or how they managed to survive or whatever. But like the apes can't get guns? Like they haven't figured that out?
No, they've kind of kept their own in the redwood forest is what we're supposed to understand. They just kind of like stayed there. Like they never like ventured
I suppose,
out.
but I mean I don't mean for offense, I mean for defense. Like a war, like I don't know, but more than a stick.
Part of the point of this film is going to be the naiveness of a new human, if that makes sense. Like, like that they could just kind of sit in their corner and do what they want to do. They can hunt for themselves there. They can do whatever they want. So they can they're self-sufficient in their corner. They don't need anything, right? Okay, so excuse me. What else here? What else have we got here? Okay, so when we go to the human settlements, they send a team out to go scout out the dam, not expecting to find the apes. I mean, they know they're there, but they don't they're trying to just kind of quietly, secretly go to the dam and see what's up with it. And then they get interact with these apes with spears, and the sort of classic tropey bad guy of the group is stubborn and does everything wrong basically of their group, ends up shooting one of the apes and killing him, and this ends up angering all the apes, right? And then there's people who are beating the war drums for war with the humans. And they come to this human settlement riding horses, which is quite the imagery. Apes riding horses. But again, this is trying to, kind of say these are the new humans who are just learning to ride again, think of apes as new humans, right? Just starting to ride a horse. They're naive. The best idea they have is to come in force, so that the humans know that they're there and they're willing to fight for their own lands. And say, don't come back here. If you don't come back here, we don't have a problem. That was Caesar's solution, is to kind of go there in force and say, don't come back here and we don't have a problem. Then they go back. So Caesar does not will a war. There's this other character who ends up being the main villain named Koba, who is another ape who we actually saw him in the first film. He was in the first film, but it was kind of ancillary. In the second film, he becomes the villain, which is kind of a spoiler. But Koba's whole point is that he's the guy who's trying to start politics in this new humanity. You see, before this film starts, there is no politics. It's just this animal instinct to follow Caesar. That's the whole premise here. So again, this is very important thematically because it's going to make some good points later on in the film. So then the humans agree, but they have to send their group of engineers to say, can we fix the dam anyway, because we're all going to starve to death and die, and we kind of want to rejoin with the rest of humanity and create a new society. Kai says starting the politics, definitely a villain. Yeah, exactly. So the humans send over a party to ask Caesar, to beg Caesar. They're not supposed to go back, right? Remember, so this is quite risky. But they go back with their hands up, basically, and say, can we talk to you? We would love to make a deal. And the deal is that they get to work on the dam as long as it's just the 4 or 5 of them. I can't remember how many of them there were. They can just work on the dam, and they can just be on their merry way after they fix it. Now, this requires some suspension of disbelief, because dams are not easy to fix with only 5 people. And it was kind of hard to continue to suspend my disbelief because they kept showing me the extent of the problem, and I was like, "Why are you showing me the extent of the problem? This doesn't help me with trying to just imagine that this is possible." Because it's a giant dam, and they're giant boulders the size of, like, I don't know, like mountain-esque boulders, like lodged in this dam. I'm like, how are you moving that? But I'm just not going to think about it. I'm not going to think about it at all. So. Okay, that aside, nitpick aside, that's the whole story here. So, the intensity of this film, the greatness of this film, is that we get the problem of the king represented. Shakespeare was very good at this. What's the problem of the king? In fact, this is a problem that still goes on today in today's politics. It's the same problem. The problem of the king is that he cannot know everything, but he has plenary authority. He can do anything, and not asterisk, but he can do a lot of things, plenary authority, but he can't know everything. Why is this important? Because he cannot actually, with his council, he cannot even control his own council. Does that make sense? He does not have the access to the information necessary even if he's the perfect person, he's a great person, perfect human. And clearly Caesar's supposed to be like model Greek, like, you know what I mean? Like, again, we're kind of drawing upon Greek imagery, Roman imagery in this film a lot. He's supposed to be the good-natured leader, right? Who really wants the best and is trying to balance the extremes and come in the middle, right? The golden mean. So he's trying his best to do this while remembering the abstract ideas of love that he learned in the first film, which wasn't really the point of the first film. So it again feels a little weird, but it's okay because we're going in a better direction. So he ends up having this problem where Koba, our main villain character, is politicking behind his back, right? Now, this is a lesson that is timeless, and it's very pertinent to today, and it's a very timeless lesson, which is that the king can choose whoever he wants, he can put whoever he wants on his council, he can hire whoever he wants to be in his administration, but fundamentally the machine is too big for the king to control, right? It's too big. Even on this small scale of this film, right, where it's just kind of like tribal nature, right, Koba is doing things behind the scenes that Caesar could never possibly know of, to the point where Koba is talking to his son, Caesar's son. Caesar now has a son. And he's whispering into his ear kind of devilishly, and kind of reminds you of Lion King, actually, with Scar and Simba, right? That kind of relationship. In fact, it's like almost exactly that exact relationship. And what is Lion King, but very Shakespearean. So you see how we're rolling here. This is good stuff. So Koba is doing all this stuff behind the scenes, which ends up changing the underlying politic underneath Caesar without him being able to control it all. At the same time, Koba's causing chaos with the humans. What is he doing? He's trying to start a war because he's convinced that he just hates humans. Like, it's just a hatred. Like, it's just, pure hatred. He has an ideological agenda to start a war with humans so they can eradicate them. He's playing on the fears of other people, and stuff like this. And he's politicking in the background in such a way that he can move covertly, but changing the sands underneath Caesar's feet, right? Even to the point where it's his own son. Okay, I think we got the point. It complicates things that Caesar made the decision to let the humans into their territory. Politically, right? It politically complicates things. So, what ends up happening is Koba ends up killing a bunch of humans inside the settlement because they're the humans are preparing their defenses in case they have to go to war with the monkeys. Our main human leader, who's supposed to be the dramatic foil to Caesar, he is kind of the same kind of dude, except he's kind of a little bit more New Yorkish, if that makes sense, where he's kind of like, just gotta get her done, kind of mentality. Very practical, very pragmatic, a little less abstract, right? But he, on the other side of things, is doing a wise thing, which is he's going to honor the treaty, but he's going to prepare in case things go sour, right? That's kind of, it's pretty sensical. So when he's arming these men, they're training, they're shooting, and whatever in the background, we understand that the whole point of that whole thing is just in case things go south, right? Is just in case. But Koba's using this knowledge to fuel the hatred, right? Saying they're trying to go to war with us. They're trying to kill us all. And then he ends up starting the war behind the leader's back, right? Koba is a council member. He's basically the right-hand man. He's Brutus, right? You see where we're going here? He's part of the origin story and everything, but he ends up starting the war against Caesar's wishes. Of course, after the humans are killed and whatever, the humans are like, okay, now we actually have to just eradicate these things because, because, they kind of murdered a bunch of us. So, that's kind of bad. Makes sense. Again, very logical. But on the other end of things, Koba's plotting to implicate the humans that are there in their territory with covertly trying to, war prep inside their boundaries or something like this. When we get to the climax of this whole thing, we have the son being instrumental in starting the war, thinking that he's doing good things. Again, very important political lessons for people to understand. Very parallel to things happening today. But this boy thinks he's doing the right thing because he doesn't know any. He's a boy. He's naive, right? And Koba is whispering all these demonic whatever, things in his ears, and he believes that this is what's best for his father. Koba's like, your father's going to get himself killed by these humans, would you want to be responsible for that, kind of thing. And he ends up being involved in something that he himself also doesn't understand. He's the useful idiot, right? He's the useful idiot. So, the point I'm trying to get to here is that as we progress to the end of this film, as we progress to the climax, we have Brutus try to kill Caesar. Which, come on. If you start the movie understanding where we're going with the imagery, you knew that was going to happen. But he does this in an interesting way. He tries to do it covertly. He shoots Caesar. He grabbed a gun from the humans. He shoots Caesar from a distance where he can't be seen in the bushes, and then leaves the gun there because none of them have guns. Right? So what's the implication? A human came there to kill their leader, right? Assassinate their leader, and to start war because he wants the apes to go attack the enemy. Okay, and he's very successful. No one sees him do it, and Caesar, spoiler, who is very much so alive, but is shot and on the ground, whatever, bleeding. But everyone assumes he's dead. He falls off the mountain basically, so he's kind of ejected from the environment. Caesar ends up getting shot, and now this politics reaches its peak, which is now there's bloodlust from the apes to kill all the humans, and now there's bloodlust from the humans to kill all the apes. And what have we arrived at as the entire point of the film is that there is no tabula rasa. There is no tabula rasa. Very intelligent point this film is making. Human nature, again, remember, apes in this film are a placeholder for new humans, right? Thematically. New humans. New humans end up being injected into the world, and they're the exact same. There is no tabula rasa. Basically a point that would conflict with the first film's thematics entirely. But in this film, extremely good point, which is human nature is broken fundamentally, right? If you want to use the Christian language, right, you would say that there is such thing as original sin, right? that human nature tends towards these sort of disordered activities. Very deep point for a film like this after coming from the first point, and very cleverly told. There are foils throughout the entire film. As I'm talking about this, I'm like, maybe I should upgrade it to a 4. I'm telling you, it's a high 3.5. The characters all foil each other. The two main leaders foil each other. The main human character foils with there's another character, I forget his name. Maurice. No, sorry, his son foils with Maurice. The main human character's son foils with Maurice. The main human character foils with James Franco, which is a little disjointed, but you have to understand that James Franco's character is kind of part of Caesar, in a sense, right? You have the female character foiling with the wife of Caesar, right? We have them foiling. Now, that particular foil, that female-to-female foil, was clearly cut out of the story. It was completely underdeveloped. My biggest critique of the whole thing. When I say it was cut, I mean it was written, but then it got cut in the editing floor. And this will become a huge problem in film 3, as we see that problem, which all Marvel movies have, basically, all Disney movies nowadays have, where you overwrite, but you wrote a 4-hour film. But you're going to have to edit it down to 2.5 hours, but you're like, we're going to figure it out, in editing. Things like this happen, where you had this very clever foiling happening, but then it just feels like, oh, there's no depth to that. Why was that even?
What is the purpose of this? Why don't we just write a 2-hour film and call it a day, or write a 4-hour film and release it?
Because they want to be able to A/B test the edits with test audiences, which makes no sense. That is a garbage strategy. A good artist needs data. Data is good, but a good artist anticipates the needs of the audience more than they understand it themselves. Takes that data and makes it transcendent. I didn't like this. Trust me, I've directed films. This happens all the time. Your staff, your crew member comes up to you and says, "I don't really like how that shot came out. Or the actor says, I didn't really like my performance." Say, okay, explain to me. Explaining to you is very important, right? And they say something. And your head goes, that doesn't sound about right. Why doesn't it sound about right? It doesn't sound about right because that's not the actual problem. What you do is you take in the data. Or sometimes it is the actual problem. But, let's say it's not the actual problem. You then extrapolate the actual problem from what they said, right? So they said, it just feels awkward. The line doesn't come out of my mouth right. I feel like I end up choking on the last few words. You're going, why are you choking on the last few words? And you keep reading the line over and over again. You're like, I don't know. I feel like I can imagine this. And then you realize it's actually what the other character said that makes this reaction sentence feel bad, right? So that's your job as an artist, right? Is to be able to understand these things. So A/B testing is fine. I don't really. Testing in of itself is fine, but to make a film out of statistics is absurd. Algorithmically make a film where you just A/B test parts of the film that I'm gonna cut this part or keep this part. It's just absolutely silly. Okay, let's get through film 2 here really quick.
You mean 3?
2. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is what we've been talking about.
Oh, I thought you were saying that we're about to move on to the next one. Okay. Yeah, I see.
So this film, very solid. It had a very good fight scene at the end. It had a very good a lot of moral dilemmas at the end of the film. A lot of characters die, etc. A lot of very good action sequences. Again, very technically awesome with the mocap and stuff like this. Just Andy Serkis's performance as Caesar just gets better. Just unreal acting from Andy Serkis. That you could see through the mocap, which is crazy. And also, good job to the VFX team because movies today don't look like this. Bizarre. Very bizarre. Because it actually looks good, and it's all CG. So, there you go. So there's that. So I would give Dawn of the Planet of the Apes a 3.5 out of 5. So imagine me watching Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and I was like, those were such intelligent points. What interesting filmmaking. I can't wait for this to get even better in War for the Planet of the Apes. Because why? Director dude, I said his name earlier, now I forget it. forget now. Matt Reeves, that's his name. Matt Reeves is directing this one. He's also writing this one, and he's writing it with another party. And I'm like, cool. We're going to get more of Matt Reeves' brain. This is interesting. I'm curious as to how this is going to go. When now, spoiler, wider war between the humans and the apes is inevitable. At the end of the last film, spoiler, Caesar recognizes a very complex thought. Apes are not as different as he thought from humans. Just because they have not engaged in the trappings of evil, right? He's like, wow, new humans are the same as old humans, right? That's basically the point. And he has a very mature moment where he becomes less naive, where he's facing the evil of the world, and he realizes, I cannot blame these humans for starting war with us. Why these wider humans for starting war with us? I cannot blame them, because from their perspective, they don't know what happened. Like, they have no idea. He's just like, man, this sucks because I still have to defend my land. And what do you get here? You have like justified war, right, on both sides, which is again very complex thought ideas for a film, where the defending party also has the right, because the defending party was not ultimately responsible for the reasons the original offense happened, which is Koba, who's now dead, right?
It's a very interesting movie. I kind of wish I watched it before coming here.
You'll still enjoy it. You'll still enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I explain these things. I go into spoilers. I don't like doing that, but it's hard to talk about these things without spoiling them. But, the best films are still good, even with the spoilers. And the ones that rely on new information to be good, that's totally fine too. But, I won't spoil those. You know what I mean? I'm not going to talk about Shutter Island in that way or something like that. I'm not going to ruin your experience of the film. So whenever I explain these spoilers, it's always because I know you can still enjoy it while knowing this information. Okay, last film. Starts with them knowing that war is on the horizon, right? That the greater human race is about to come to eradicate them. But now they've got a bunch of guns. So now the apes have tons of guns. And now they're also starting to talk more. Because, again, these are humans, new humans who are becoming more and more like actual just humans, right? And again, we should approach this film with apes as new humans mentality, but unfortunately, this film is just thematically all over the place. It's plot-wise just like this film is the epitome of writing the film in the editing room. As a filmmaker, we watch enough films, you understand the filmmaking process. You can very easily see where parts of the story are literally missing. They try to do it in such a way that the audience doesn't notice, and probably the audience doesn't. Or, they've noticed that it's bad. They might notice that it's bad, but they don't know why it's bad, you know what I mean? But I can literally show you, probably, this is where that arc was supposed to come back and never did, and this is where that arc was supposed to end. Like, I could probably, point to those points in the film. This film was clearly a 6-hour film that got cut down into, 2 hours and 45 minutes. Very long film. And therefore, even worse that it was bad. Because it didn't justify its own runtime. Don't do that to people unless you can justify the runtime. And we get a much darker film, which is to be expected with where we're going with these themes. And sadly, it looks so much better than all the films. It is visually stunning. It is actually uniquely breathtaking. There are scenes in here. It mostly takes place in the winter of North California. So it actually gets cold, right? And so there's snow everywhere, these beautiful mountains, very, very gorgeous landscapes. They clearly spent a lot of time just focusing on capturing these very epic landscapes. Very cool stuff from that perspective. But the writing and the editing is just so bad. And it's so sad. Because I was expecting the pinnacle of the ideas from before to get even more exposed, or at least, if it's new ideas, it builds on the fact that we already explored those other ideas, or something like that. Which is fine. But I'm not going to go through the plot of this one because it's too complicated and also, like, garbage. But basically, we take a detour into... not detour. This film does not understand whether it wants to be a continuation of the last film or a completely different film. It doesn't know. Like, it keeps waffling whether or not it's going to talk about, like, oh, apes and humans are just the same, right? And again, it's about human nature. And vacillates between that and just, like current day politics. Like, it's just, like, very on the nose. Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
So is this same team or a different team?
Same team. Kind of. Same director. Different actor, or different human actors this time, because the other humans, again, it's implied that they died of a mutation in the simian flu. Right. So if the flu mutates, and this causes a plot shift, because what this causes is the humans to become more like apes. This was actually could be like a very, like, again, good continuation of the last meditation, right? Like, you know, like, what happens when humans start becoming less rational, right? It was an interesting start question, and then we could sort of explore the ideas of the second film, maybe in more depth. Except that whole thing becomes such a nonsense, confusing, almost unrelated. Like, it could have been just taken out of the film, and we could have probably had the same motivations throughout the entire film. So again, felt like that was more written to the story than we ultimately got. Anyway, we have a lot of bizarre things happening in this film. Spoiler. These humans come to eradicate the apes. The apes fight back a little bit. The humans come back with a bigger army, and they end up wiping out Caesar's family, which, except for his youngest son, which is actually pretty like again coming from the idea that they are the new humans from the last film. You can start to actually emotionally engage with them, if you get what I mean. Unlike the first film, I was like, that's an ape. like, you know, I mean, like, you know, don't torture animals. That's bad. But, like, you know, at the end of the day, if that ape was coming at my house and, like, trying to like, I don't know, steal my food, it's gonna get shot. So, like, it's not really a big deal there. In the second film, when we understand thematically they're supposed to be us, but not in a weird way, just in a symbolic way, you actually feel something now when Caesar's family is annihilated, right? Okay. That's good and all, and creates a revenge arc for Caesar. And I thought we were going to go full-on revenge film, which I was really down for, because what they had going for them is the story of the Mad King. We could have got the story of the Mad King, and we start going down that path. Then all of a sudden, in the middle of the film, complete deviation from the story of the Mad King. And you would think, oh, is it a brilliant deviation? Is it something new? Are they inventing some different pattern of the story? No. They're going to a different pattern entirely in the middle of the story that is just not that interesting, which is this crazy, like, humans as genocidal maniacs arc that draws upon the most insane of combination of images. It draws upon the images of the Holocaust. It draws upon images of slavery. It draws upon images of white supremacy. It draws upon images of like the Gestapo and stuff like this. All in one. Like, it just puts all those symbologies all together. I'm like, dude, come on. Like, guys, like, I'm just so tired. You have no idea how tired I am of this crap. I'm so tired of people just needlessly invoking these really graphic and really horrible events to make cheap points. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. It's okay if the humans are bad. Right? Like, I don't mind if they're bad. But when you draw upon, like, these really disgusting events in human history, please earn the right to do that with your script. Like, make a script that actually rises to the gravity of those things instead of just... It's now becoming it's becoming this thing where we just kind of just compare everything to these things. This is just like the Holocaust. Is it? I don't know. Sorry for the rant here. But, like, it's just like, this is just like slavery. Is it? My goodness. Sorry. But But it's just it's like we are becoming desensitized to things we should be very sensitive to. Like, it's very bizarre. So, in any case, going back from that rant there, instead of getting the story of the Mad King, we get the story of a weird Christ-like Caesar that is very specifically unchristed. Very weird. It's hard for me to describe, because our main character, the Christian nationalist, whatever amalgam he's supposed to be, right, is wearing a cross on his neck. He's got like crosses all over his stuff, but then he calls himself God. Like, he literally calls himself like the Alpha and Omega, right? And like it's very weird. But then Caesar is, I think, supposed to be like the true religion of Caesar. But then this kind of distorts a bunch of ideas. Like, this is not like, again, I can engage with other people's ideas. I don't mind that they're different ideas than I would put out. What's more annoying is that they don't cohere. Like, they don't make sense. They're putting ideas together that don't make sense. So what we have is a crucifixion of Caesar, basically, this kind of culminates into. On behalf of his Holocausted... maybe I should be using that word so much because of the algorithm. I don't know. I love you, YouTube. Mea culpa, I guess.
You're supposed to like undo it.
Yes, maybe it gives me 5 more points. Become a YouTube creator. Yeah, I don't know.
Subscribe.
Subscribe, like and subscribe. But the point I'm trying to make here is that, like, the silliness of this whole thing is that we don't actually like clearly the filmmaker doesn't understand like the imagery he's drawing from, because he still keeps Caesar as this vengeful, like like earthly, like, you know, he hasn't transcended, right? Like, I don't mind this imagery as a dueling opposite to the imagery of the main villain. I don't really care. The thing that bothers me is that it doesn't understand what makes this imagery work. Like, it doesn't understand it at all. And so this crucifixion of Caesar ends up being so that the apes can get food, which is again okay, except that Caesar has this internal flaw still that hasn't been dealt with, which is that he wants this very Koba-esque. The film had good ideas, I'm telling you, it had really good ideas. Koba-esque vengeance, right? Hatred, right? Like, it's hatred in him while he's suffering through this. And this just reminds me of the politics of today, right? You can hate people so long as it's justified. You can hate people all you want so long as it's justified. And that's just disturbing. I'm sorry. This film came out in a time where a lot of films were like this, and I didn't realize that. 2017. I didn't realize... I forgot about the eras of film and stuff like this. I forgot that this was, like, ripe for this kind of, like, silly analogy. Like, this is not good for cinema when we do things like this. You are not listening to your audience at all. You're not actually a good observer of reality. And that's your job, is to be a good observer of reality and to teach, or not even teach. That could be one aspect. If you're comfortable teaching, that's fine. Another aspect is just, even if you're asking questions, to ask coherent questions, to engage with your audience, to have a dialogue. Films can be great dialogue. This film is just a silly, like, devolution of the entire intelligence of the entire of the second film into actually the apes are superior and hatred can fester as long as it's justified. I don't think that was the original film. Like, I really don't. I actually think the film was written originally such that he has to get over this remnant of Koba in him. That's actually, I'm pretty sure that's how it was written, because it like literally goes that way. We have a very intense moment with him and his friend saying, "You're just like Koba," and like very dramatic, super. It was like a ooh, wow, you like hit him right in the, like, you know, because Koba, like, you know, is the only reason his any of this is happening, right? That his family's dead, you know, and everything, you know. The only reason this is happening is because of Koba starting the war. But then we just abandon it to go on this other side quest through, like, this silly, stupid imagery of the Holocaust and other associated images. I don't know. I have no explanation for it other than, I don't know. Like, it's just It's just silly. It's politics. It's ironic. It's politics entering the third film and ruining everything when in the second film it had really intelligent things to say. Yeah, I don't know how many times I have to say it, but like, it's not that the politics disagree with me. That's the problem. The problem is that it has nothing good to say. It just is just angry at the viewer. It's angry. It's just an angry film, right? Any case, going back to the ending here, this is solidified. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. It turns out this human army that ended up enslaving these apes to do their bidding or whatever. It turns out that they're facing attack from another human army who wants to take over their outpost because it's the last highly resourced military outpost in California. So like there's like the rest of California that just wants to take over this base, and because he's become like a cult like thing, everyone's kind of like, that's bad, right? And they're like, oh, let's just gotta take it over, right? So they're trying to use the apes to do labor for them in preparation of this final battle, basically. The final battle happens and the apes are escaping. Now, this gets so silly that there are characters that have zero motivation for changing at the end of the film who just change. I hate that. You know, like, it's just like, come on. You have a 2.5 hour film, 2 hours of whatever it is. You can't develop characters such they don't just magically change at the end. Why do we spend 2.5 hours? Like, this is crazy. We have Caesar kind of learning a lesson about humanity from a little girl they kind of adopted from her dad that they killed and never came to terms with. These apes on their vengeance mission killed her dad because he didn't know any better. His daughter was in his shed, basically. He was out getting wood, and he sees these apes, and he's like, oh my, I'm in trouble, right? And he tries to pull out a gun to kill the apes, and the apes get him first, which is, I mean, there's never a chance there, but I think it was a dumb decision by this dad. But when we saw the daughter, we understood that he felt desperate, right, to protect his daughter. He was afraid that they were going to find his daughter and kill her or whatever, right? And this makes sense given that there's a war going on, right? Like, it's actually a logical set of thoughts, from the father that this is his last chance to defend his daughter. They end up adopting the daughter. The daughter doesn't mourn her dad. Like, she looks at his dead body and is like, oh. Like, and that in of itself, I was like, okay, that's just kind of her dealing with mourning in this way that's, like, not showing externally. She's infected, so she's mute, right? And they take her in, and they kind of basically make her one of them. Without ever, like, there's never a point in the film where they kind of have a moment to, like, undress what happened earlier. They killed her dad, and now they're her dad. Very weird. Very weird. There's an arc in there that doesn't get fleshed out with their new daughter that really, like, bizarre, where she kind of, like, has this connection with this one ape, where this one ape protects her, and she, and then that ape dies, and she has this moment, and she actually cries for the ape instead of her dad. I'm telling you, weird stuff. But in any case, the only sign of redemption for Caesar at the end of this film is that he looks at this girl that they've basically adopted and says, well, they're not all bad. I guess because we adopted them. It's very it doesn't make much sense. What seals the fate for me in terms of what this film is trying to get at is that the film had the opportunity to end in a way that emphasized the theme of the first film, which is same as it ever was. The film was very clearly going in that direction, and then it decides that it wants to have one more thing happen. The same as it ever was would have been the other humans come over to take over from the other humans, and it turns out they also hate the apes or whatever, and everything just keeps going. Like, it's just this, like, perpetuation of the human condition, right? Like, that would have been the sort of interesting ending of this film. Instead, we have a Deus Ex Machina kill the new army, which is an avalanche. Happens, an avalanche just comes in. What does that mean thematically? It means the apes are superior. So now you don't make sense, with the other film. What does it mean that? Let me explain that real quick. It means this because it means that the apes, the way that the film ends with that action, and the apes kind of go off into the sunset, what is that telling you? It means that now they can have their utopia, now that the humans are gone. But we learn in the second film that doesn't exist, because internally they'll have problems. So it's just conflicting messaging again. It's just like, come on, bro. Write a consistent story. Okay. And then we get a very Moses-like ending to the story. It's very clearly Moses. In fact, the new film, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, seems to kind of continue the very like Old Testament imagery. We have a character called Noah in the next film, if you heard it in the trailer. And so we're kind of, I guess that's where we're going. But this Caesar at the end of this film, spoiler, ends up having a fatal wound, bringing his people to the promised land, where I guess now apes and their one human can play and dance and be merry into the sunset. And he's looking at this promised land, this beautiful landscape, and as he's looking at it, he dies. And Maurice, a character that's been his friend since the very beginning, ends up saying, "We will remember your story. I will make sure that everyone remembers." So that's very kind of Old Testament-y, but also it's like very like like this whole trilogy has been the legend that Maurice is retelling, is kind of the vibe that you get, although it doesn't make sense with any of the other two films. So
Maurice is going a little bit crazy on this one.
Exactly. So, third film's very disappointing. I noticed that the third film also gets much lower praise from people who say, it seems as the general opinion is that it is kind of a action fest without the same depth as the second one, and I would concur entirely. But it's still highly rated, so it's not like, it's just less highly rated than the other two. Well, I would say that I would probably give this a low 2.5. So again, if this was not connected to the rest of the series, if this was a film on its own, I'd probably give it a 2, honestly. But it tried to be interesting and bring up interesting points from the second one. It's also very visually stunning. The acting gets better, the CG gets better, everything's better. There's a lot of practicals in this as well in terms of the action sequences that are great. And again, very impressive from the filmmaking technology perspective, but super overhyped, guys. Super overhyped. So... maybe it's just me. Maybe it's like my writing brain, and like I can't stop thinking about story specifically, and like I just make that too large of the portion of the way I think of films. But honestly, filmmakers are storytellers. That's their fundamental purpose. Even when you have a montage, like a French montage, where all it is just a series of images it's sort of impressionistic, they're all stories. Like it's just a story of a cycle of images, right? So, like, I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine looking at film from a different direction, but that doesn't mean you can't. So, if you have a different opinion about this trilogy, and you thought this was more interesting than I thought, because at the end of the day, if I wasn't going to talk about this on the podcast, again, I probably would have just forgotten. I probably just wouldn't have thought about it this hard, you know what I mean? I probably would have been like, okay, that was not a waste of time, but it wasn't like, it wasn't time maxing, and I would have probably been like, okay, interesting. I have a different opinion about this than anyone else, but you got this in-depth review because Mixed Media is an awesome place, and you should like and subscribe. So, yeah. Any thoughts on that, Nathan?
No, that's really interesting. I think it's like it's very simple. Like, at least obviously we just got a very sort of overarching story, right? When you go into like the details, or whatever, you don't retell the entire movie, word for word or whatever. But the overarching sort of thing is, at least in the second movie, is very like simple to follow, I guess. Very like understandable, but also interesting in how they did it. The fact that Apes is kind of weird, but I kind of get it. In the fact that it's like, okay, it's like the new, like aliens might not work as well because they're not like young necessarily. It's like a young human thing, But I don't know, like a more like a Frankenstein, more like a humanoid, like our humanoid, like a more human-like thing physically, maybe it would be interesting. I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I really want to engage with people who really liked these films. I know 99 Crime on Discord said they thought they were forgettable, and that's probably I probably would have thought they were forgettable too if I didn't have to engage with the fact that people actually really love these films. I probably would have been like, oh, that was an interesting franchise at the very least, and I'm going to move on with my life. The second film I probably would have remembered more than anything, but. Yeah, if you enjoy it more than I did, please let me know in the comments exactly why. And I would love to engage with you, and maybe I'll read your comments in the next film and kind of engage with them that way. Yeah, I'm not... conversation's good. That's the whole point of this. The whole point of mixed media is not to be weirdly confrontational. The whole point is to recover having strong opinions again. Towards art, that's one of the points at least. It's okay to have strong opinions about things, and I like being proven wrong. I enjoy it sincerely. So if you can explain this to me in such a way that makes everything click, fantastic. I might even rewatch it, because I really love that feeling of being wow, I just didn't get it, and now you've disabused me of my not getting it. So there you go. Okay, good. Shall we go on to the next segment of the night? Last segment?
All right, let's do it.
Sweet. So thank you for watching this segment. This last segment here will be featuring Nathan, who will be talking about, or will be doing arguing with Reddit with regards to gaming. So, here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome to Mixed Media Gaming. Today I'll be doing the Arguing with Reddit segment, so I'll be looking at some Reddit hot takes and maybe agreeing, maybe disagreeing with them. We'll see. And Ben is not here today, as I guess we'll go over in a moment. But so this time, usually, each one of us picks a hot take for me, and then I only know of my own. But actually, I have two. One of them from Kai, who sent me one. He DM'd me one. I saw the title. I don't really know what it means, though, so I didn't read it anyway. So that is entirely fresh to me. And then Irving's, I have no idea what it is. Haven't seen the title or anything like that. So, yeah, this will be interesting.
Sweet. So the first one I'll pull up is whatever the first one you posted. And here is...
That's Kai's. I don't really know what this means.
Okay. So we're going to pull up Kai's here. Here we are. Yeah, you want to read it?
Sure. This has a flat 0 upvotes and 63 comments, which is a little bit concerning. That's what you're saying. 400 one-man projects could be 4 100-person projects if you got your ish together. 400. Okay. Every time I see a new quote, "Hey, I'm making my own Metroidvania game," and unquote, which by the way is from RSS Metroidvania, I feel that pit in my stomach knowing no one's ever going to play it because it's probably never going to get finished because they don't have the support or team around them. And even if the concept is cool, 99% of these posts will go nowhere. If a quarter of y'all who have all this time on their hands could get together, put your shared ideas into one game, use all your shared free time, you can make a game that would actually make money and become a dev studio. I see it all the time in the modding community. I don't get why people don't just make a studio. You have the money and time to do it on your own. And you have the money and time, I think is what I was supposed to say, to do it with a group of people. Just my 2 cents. Interesting.
Hot
interesting,
take.
Interesting. That's a spicy one. That's a great. That's a good one.
Bonafide hot take.
Yeah. Certified for sure. So yeah, I mean, often I do see. This is, I guess, not really a secret. You see posts around, people making games okay. And you see them well, this looks good, This looks like, maybe artistically or in terms of the game design concept, whatever it is. Okay, this looks pretty promising. Now, you kind of become wise to the fact that if all of these games, or even a large amount of them, were successful, you would have heard about these things. They seem, like they would be, pretty good concepts, right? And yet, how many times do you go to, r/whatever and see they say, hey, I released this game and it didn't go well? And I guess you could say, like, hey, there's some bias there. I suppose maybe not as many people are going to Reddit to vent about how their game went well, I guess. Oh, it does happen. People say, talk about the success stories, but it is no secret that most indie devs are not successful, but if we're going by the metric of like sales or something like that, and relative to like a game that's self-sustaining to a dev studio or something like that, So yeah, I have had this thought of like I haven't had this thought of like we can all join forces or whatever, but I have realized like like there are a lot of a lot of these projects just unfortunately go nowhere, even if they seem pretty cool, in terms of like sales, they go nowhere. Obviously that's not the only reason why maybe game deving, you might not just be doing it for sales. So that's not necessarily required. But I will say that it is not as trivial as it may seem to just band together and and try to do your thing. Part of the issue is that if you're making a game alone, that means that you have willingly decided to partake in the creative process, right? And if you have too many cooks in the kitchen trying to all partake in that same creative process, you might have issues. That's why movies, for example, almost always there's one director, right? I don't know. I assume there's like cases. Yeah, it's like those who are those brothers who like. I don't know. Those brothers who like direct together. They did like Marvel movies or something like that. You know what I'm talking
about? Wait. Which movies? Like.
I don't know.
There are a lot of brother pairs, so it really highly depends.
But do they? Is it even a thing? Is that a thing where there will be co-directors?
Yeah. Like Russo, the Russo brothers. Like
Russo brothers. That's one thing. Okay. Yeah. They do Marvel movies, right? Sometimes. Am I wrong about that? Did I make that up?
Possibly. I don't actually. They haven't been around for a while. I don't know what they're doing now. It's a good question.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe I made that up, but yeah, it's obviously even then you have two people. It's not like you have like 3 or 4. I'm sure there's got to be some example 3 directors, I suppose. But there's only so many directors you'll find on film. Usually one. You find a limited amount of writers and et cetera, et cetera. A limited amount of heads of various departments, I would assume. Because there's like part of that being that it's hard to share your creative vision to compromise your creative vision with someone else. Like there could be some fruitfulness in sort of bouncing ideas off each other and getting second opinions and combining your collective knowledge into one thing. But there's also the trade-off of like, hey, I totally want to make Planet of the Apes about like new humans. But then there's other guys like, but what about genocide? And you're like, what? And then you end up with the third installment of Planet of the Apes family. So I kind of went through this problem actually right here. Kai says, I think that's right. I don't know which statement, but I'm glad. I just said a lot, I think. So, yeah. What are people saying about this? And like, oh wait, so I guess I'll say like, 100 random people. Also, you'll find that too when you start to work with people from the internet that people tend to be very flaky and be like, oh, I'm totally down to do this thing, and then you get a few weeks and they're gone. And they're like, oh, something came up, or they just silently disappear, whatever it is, This happens to people even you might know, like friends, saying, and they're all like, oh, they're hyped up, they're like, oh, and like. Who could withstand being hyped up for a good idea, right? It's like understandable, right? But you gotta understand that hype is not gonna last more than a week. So you have to you take your hype and you have to subtract it by some like amount to determine whether you will stick with the project or not. Is what you have to do. Kai said most of what you said, but I was talking about the Russos being the guys who are involved in Marvel. Okay, cool. Yeah. Right, yeah. So what are some people saying? If you ever worked on a team, you understand why people prefer to work solo. Yeah. Even though the difference between a small team... Oh, this is the reply to that. Let's see. Because it's equally unrealistic. A lot of one-man shows are either someone with a super specific vision or someone working in their spare time that's not going to be able to work out logistically with people. Yeah, I mean, the people who are likely to be the most, creative and people, the visionaries, the people who are the indie devs to begin with, right? If you're not like that, then if you just, you want to make 3D models or code or make music or whatever it is, right? Obviously, there is some amount of what do you call that? Like self leadership. You know what I'm saying? Like self determination, I suppose, that's involved in those processes. Even if you're like working for a company or whatever it is, and you're not like the head of your section, but it's a lot more limited than if you're literally the one guy who has control over literally everything. So yeah. If 99. Oh, also people don't get paid typically when they're doing things for free, which definitely switches up the incentives of things. If 99 capable people wanted to work on my MV, that sounds like music video to me. But Metroidvania, that's what that means in the subreddit. Okay, MV for free and do it exactly the way I want it. That'd be neat. Of course, there's only one person who fits all those criteria, and it's me. Yeah, fair enough. Some more chats. 99 Crime says, I understand that it's hard to work with people, and you are partitioning your creative freedom by working with others. However, in all caps, partitioning off the work on a project to some dedicated individuals can cut down the work in such a big way. It's surprising that people don't team up more often, especially since game devs require so many very specific skills. And Kai says that's true. It helps with jam teams. Yeah, I imagine if you do a lot of game jams, then you're sort of like going to be better naturally at learning to compromise. Maybe that's really the issue, is that we don't learn to compromise. I include myself in that. Like it's I suppose maybe if I did a lot more jam stuff, because I have worked in teams before and I have found it somewhat aggravating and somewhat nice too, to also not be the only person doing anything. I just thought of it as a trade-off, but yeah, I suppose maybe if I did that more often, then it would, like, I would learn, I would be better for it, maybe. Kai says, though, in fairness, most of my jams have been for 100 people. Yeah, 100 people is kind of crazy. I don't.
Yeah, seriously.
That's a lot of organization. Also, who's going to decide who's the lead of that? That sounds like a tough. Who's doing what? That sounds like a tough thing to figure out when you have no structure to begin with.
If we were talking about films, I would never do a film like this unless the team was like 3 people. And it was a very small project, because you can't forget that people can actually detract from your project, right? Like, you can have people who like are like, I experienced this in a team one time, and it's not really like, I don't mean to like it's not really his fault, like, kind of is. But like, he was very new to game development, and one thing that kept occurring were merge conflicts. Oh my goodness. I tried to explain what a merge conflict was. I guess he just didn't get it or something like that. And every single time I tried to actually, this wasn't even on merge the buggy code.
It wasn't even like we were using Git. We were using, I don't know if it still exists. I think it does. Unity is like, I think they call it Unity Collab. Essentially, imagine.
Oh, you cut out.
And that's it. I cut out. Oh,
yeah, for a moment.
Oh, what did you miss something?
You said Unity Collab and then you cut off.
Okay, yeah. So Unity has this thing called Unity Collab. It's a Git repo with one branch. It's essentially what it is. It's like a Git repo hidden with one branch, and you can't do anything nice. Essentially, you can just roll back, and that's it. That's all you can do. Is like, I made a bad mistake, let me go back, or something like that. That's really all you can do. And people can, push the same one Git branch, essentially. So if you have a merge conflict on the one Git branch, you have to resolve it. You can't immediately roll. You can't roll back and then go to a different branch, roll back and try testing. No. You are stuck. You have to resolve it every single time. It happens so often because you're working on one branch, right? It's not like you can just maybe make a merge conflict change, but then change a bunch of stuff that would conflict and then merge all that in at one time, and so it's more efficient. It's like, no, every single small change is like, okay, the new thing I gotta fix or whatever. That was awful. So like that, I guess that sort of left a sour taste in my mouth. But people can detract from the experience. In that case, I don't know. I'm sure that guy learned his lesson about Git eventually, or Unity Collab, and probably figured it out. But yeah, you were gonna say something though? I cut you off.
I don't remember. I think I was just gonna say that I worked with over 100 people for one of my short films. which was a blessing. But the reason that worked, even though almost no one was getting paid, there were a few people that were paid, but almost no one was getting paid, is because we had the same like end goals involved, and who were the leaders was unambiguous. So I had total plenary authority over the film. So like at the end of the day, but at the same time, I can't use it like that. Like I'm a director on a Hollywood set because people are working for me for free. So I can't I do have to involve their ideas and make some compromises because at the end of the day, it's kind of a shared vessel. But it still worked out really well because there was an incentive structure that forced it to work, which namely is we're all trying to get something really nice on our portfolio because we're all in the same part of our career because we're all in college. And I also handpicked them well too, which you can't really do as easily on the internet because you don't know them at all. But I worked with people I knew and trusted. So, of course, not all of 100 of them I knew, but the most important people I did know and delegated authority accordingly. So that worked out really well. But I would never do something like from internet people, getting together, make a film, unless it was like 3 people or like 5 people, where it's very easy to manage conflict, if that makes sense. Not even 5 people, 3 people.
Yeah. So maybe this Reddit post should be like renamed to 3 people, 3-man projects. 99 Crime says, though Reddit does skew towards the grumpier types, so I can see how this thread would generate animosity. Kai said yes. 99 Crime says, at Kai, I'm currently on a sound team that I started with 6 people. Now it's functionally 2 people. People drop off of various reasons. So I get it, working with people is hard sometimes. But I argue if your goal is to finish games and you haven't finished a game before, working on a team is the fastest way to success. I suppose, but if it's your first time, maybe I'm just spoiled, right? With just working on myself all the time. Maybe it was my first time, I wouldn't care as much or something. I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't have the expectation of I can just command everything as I'd like it to be, But there are certain things where, it's interesting. There's certain things where I wouldn't mind. For example, a composer, totally take the reins, do what you want, do what you gotta do. Even though I dabble in music a little bit, one, I'm still not good at it in any capacity, and 2, I don't know. I think I suppose I just really believe in the average Reddit composer more than myself to do something good. I don't know. Kai said it would be a much more reasonable post if it said 5 or 10. I think the sheer number of people specified contributes to the hotness of the take.
Seriously.
Yeah, for sure. 100 is quite crazy. So
yeah.
It
also kind of starts costing money to work with that many people. There's no way it's not going to cost money somehow. Seriously. Yeah, especially for example, if you want to use some let's say you want to use you're using Photoshop for art, right? Mm-hmm. So not everyone needs to get Photoshop. to a lot easier if you have 3 people. It's maybe 2 of them already have Photoshop. One of them's willing to buy a Photoshop. Although it's really expensive, but I don't know, whatever software it is, So yeah.
Yeah.
This next was from me, from r/gaming. Pretty simple. What moment in a game completely turned your opinion around from disliking the game to absolutely loving it?
I think I saw this. I didn't choose it though. Or I saw something similar. Disliking the game to absolutely loving it. Yeah, I saw this, but I didn't really think about an answer to this. I'm trying to think of any games that I start. Well, there's of course Generation Zero, which I consider a really good game, but it's really bad. It's so bad it's a good game. So definitely at the start I was like, this is not even that fun.
Wait, they're so bad it's good games?
Oh,
that's a road I need to go down apparently.
Yeah, I mean they patched the game, so it's not really fun anymore. Back in the day, though, yeah, when it was newer. I can't remember if it went from alpha to beta or beta to full release. One of those, it was new in whatever phase it was, and I got it, and it was one of the most I never, it was one of the hardest times I've laughed while playing with a friend. Just the most random. The thing that just don't make any sense. Why? I've never seen bugs like this. It's not unplayable. That's the thing. It's always playable. It's just like, it's like
Well, that's how
like,
a good so bad it's good movie is, right? It's like it works. Like
you can watch it.
exactly.
You can understand it.
Exactly.
Like certain things, like for like months, like there are these like med kits you can pick up in the game, and it's like an open world game. Like med kits you can find, like just like phased through stoves. Like they would always be placed on stovetops. First off, why are they on the stove? Like why are med kits found on stoves? First off, specifically, like almost always, and they're always phased through it. The way you get to like move your mouse in a really specific way to be able to actually get it, and like the way it's really hard. It's like, when in the months, why don't you just like you can leave it on the stove? That's weird to me, but leave it on the stove, fine. Just move it up. Like it's not that hard. Like just move it up. I don't understand. I didn't get it. Like one time, I was playing with a friend multiplayer, and it's like a game with these giant robots that are like the antagonists, or not all of them are giant, but like the big boss is like giant, and like he couldn't see the robot on his screen, but I can see it on my screen. And it was just like lasering him, but he took no damage. Like it was the most comical, like a huge larger than a house robot just looking directly down at this guy, just like beaming him to death. It's just on his screen. There's nothing. I don't know how that happens. I've never heard of that before. Oh man, but yeah, that was one of the greatest. So I guess that's an example of like not for a good reason why I went from disliking it to absolutely loving it. Any other games that come to mind? I don't know. I don't really think there's really games that I went from disliking to loving. I feel like I I'm just like unsure when I start a game. I start playing, I become sure, and then I'm just sure. And if I don't like it, I just stop playing it. That's probably what's gonna happen. So yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of a boring answer, but I just don't know.
Okay. But that did introduce me to the world of So Bad It's Good games, so it's still a good answer.
Yeah. There's a game called Not So Bad It's Good, but it's like kind of in the vein. It's called. I don't think it exists anymore. It's multiplayer. I think it's dead. It's called Goat of Duty. It was a Call of Duty like.
Oh, I know that game. Yes.
Did we play it before? Did we play it before? I don't remember. I think we might have played it before.
I think
together.
So.
Yeah, it's not so bad as good games per se, but it kind of has that kind of dank vibe to it. Like that's definitely the goal. It was like a Who Killed Captain Alex? It was that was the genres and whatever.
But like Who Killed Captain Alex is not actually so bad. It's good. It's just good because it's trying to do that. Yeah,
I would say Goat of Duty is the same sort of idea. Yeah.
Messed up the chat here. Put that back up. So this last one's from you.
Oh, there's a bunch of chats.
Okay.
There's 99 Crime says that's 60% of them referring to. I don't know what we're referring to. I don't know what I missed. 99 Crime is so bad it's good. Okay, maybe it's not that many. I don't know, but there are many niche janky games that are still fun to play. Yeah. And Kai said, "Oh man, mixed media golf with friends." With your friends night would be awesome. Speaking of jank games that are fun, 99 Crime says there's a whole term in Japanese for horrible games that have their own appeal. I'm gonna try to say this kosuge, presumably. I'm gonna just I just cursed in Japanese on accident.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, there you go.
Sweet. So this last one's from you, if you want to explain.
Oh yeah. What did I post? I posted. Here we go. Yeah, this is from Arsenal's Games On. I was scrolling for a long time. I couldn't really find anything that I thought was all too interesting. I don't know why. But this says fetch quests without backtracking. How would you do this? And this is a longer text, but the person explains that he's trying to make some game, an ARPG, where he wants the player to keep moving and explore rather than backtracking and returning to previous areas. And the first thing I thought of was like Tomb Raider 2013. And I was thinking like, I feel like I kind of had that experience. I didn't really backtrack. I always kind of just had the will to go forwards. I guess I didn't have a reason to go backwards. So there are these hidden tombs in the game that, if you're going for like a 100% completionist run, you can go and try and find. But I find that like those wouldn't have caused me to backtrack if I was trying to get them all. I would have just been searching areas as I progressed through and then just continuing if I didn't see it, I wouldn't have been like going back or whatever. I suppose if like, I can't remember if there were indicators that you were in a section with it. I think there were like, I don't know if there were signs of it. Because there weren't signs of it, you could miss it and then you'd have to go back or whatever. So I don't know. I suppose that's possible. But my answer is that you're probably not going to get every player to not do that. I actually don't know the intention of why you would necessarily want that, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a valid reason for it. But yeah, I think there are just so many different types of players that you can't account for everyone. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of like movies and music in a way where you can't necessarily like get everyone to see the movie or hear the music as you'd like them to. But it's definitely different because there's like a whole new dimension of like choice to video games, right? Like, will you backtrack or not? All right, that just depends on what type of player you are, which is weird because it like that comes from like your personality and also like the games you played prior and sort of like your experience carrying through to new games. Very strange, but prior games affecting how you play new games. But not gonna be able to do it entirely. But if you wanted to incentivize that in some sense, right? I'm thinking of what Tomb Raider did, and it was like I didn't really have a reason to go back. I was just kind of go forward to like, progress in the story and stuff, on the narrative and trying to figure out what's going on, on this island. So, give them like a good reason to go forward. If it's like a narrative-driven game, which if it's an RPG, presumably that's a decent aspect of it. Then have craft a great narrative that makes them wanting to hear the next part of the story, right? Maybe it kind of reminds me of like when you would write essays in high school and they would always say, you got to start with a hook or whatever, right? Classic advice, which I suppose is not bad. Sometimes like you want to get, the reader engaged with whatever so they can continue reading it, right? Otherwise they might be like, I'm not going to read this. Although, I mean, what scenario you're writing, it depends on what you're writing the essay for, I guess. But anyways, in terms of like a video game, for example, where you want the play, you can kind of treat like the game as like a series of essays, right? So bear with me with this analogy, where different sections are just different essays, and so you need a hook to get people into the next section, right? So that might be like there's say the start of the game has a hook to it, and you're like, okay. Maybe it's like a mystery or like an LA Noire mystery or Tomb Raider as well. It's also like a mystery in some sense. And you're like, all right, let's, move forward, progress, trying to figure out what's going on. And maybe that initial mystery might sort of like fade out over the period of playing the game because games are typically very long, a lot longer than movies. And so like that initial sort of hype of like, oh, what's going on might kind of, it's not like you should always, want to find out what's going on, right? But you might not necessarily want it as much as you did it in that moment, if you get what I'm saying, at the beginning. So that's kind of, maybe the end of the first essay or whatever, very loose analogy. But from there, you have to get it to like, okay, what's the player needs to want to go forward for something, It might not be the big grand mystery. It might be some smaller point, some smaller piece of the puzzle or whatever it is, right? It might be that there's, I don't know, like literally like enemies chasing you or something like that. That'd be something, right? So yeah, that's something. Or you could also prevent them from going back by like, I don't know what the setting is. The game wasn't really described much. So like, I don't know if you had like barriers that appeared, maybe natural hazards that don't let you go backwards, whatever it is. If that's a possibility, that could work too. So yeah.
Sweet. Well, that's the last one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Take us out of the show.
All right, this is a good one. If you enjoyed this episode, consider going to liking, subscribing, doing whatever it is on whatever platform you're on. Consider what do you call it? What do you call it on locals? Do you subscribe? Do you join?
The button on Rumble says join. So I'm going to say join. Join our locals.
All right. Consider joining our locals for $5 a month to support us, like what you're seeing. So, yeah, and also, if you have anything to add to the conversation, whether it be about the last segment, which was about Planet of the Apes, or if you have anything to add about the various takes we saw today, and the hot takes, and maybe any dissenting opinions or whatever it may be, any nuances, whatever, consider joining our Discord at you can go to mixedmediapodcast.com. You'll find the link there, and it's the best way of keeping having a conversation that's a lot more personal and outside the confines of Tuesday. So yeah.
Speaking of outside the confines of Tuesday, Friday, Ben is going, right? Yeah, yes. Ben is. It's wait,
didn't Ben just go? Oh, we messed something up for sure.
Maybe it was supposed to be his arguing with Reddit.
Didn't I do a topic last time? I thought it was topic then arguing with Reddit.
Okay, well, we clearly messed up our order a little bit. So this week we will have someone on Friday. It's probably going to be Nathan, I assume, actually, because Ben just did his. Or they'll both do it, who knows. But we'll do our classic Friday Fun Day on our Discord. So definitely join for that reason as well. And it'll be something interactive, something fun, something communal. And it'll be good. And if you want me to play a So Bad It's Good game on a future Fun Friday, let me know. And if you have game suggestions, also let me know, because I'm down.
It's weird, because City Skylines is not so bad it's good. It's just bad and good,
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I have still not gotten the game to run yet, by the way, after a fresh install, so that's interesting.
I was good at making videos about like So Bad It's Good games. It's a video game donkey. There's like that one Lord of the Rings game about Gollum. Apparently it's like really bad. I haven't played it yet, but really it kind of like that seems like a game maybe like I should look into for So Bad It's a Good game.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see y'all next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Look, tell a man no trouble. I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then dead I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We pack, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light. That way they know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone vibe.